Hi everyone. So today we're talking about the circulatory system. We are covering this first. We're going to go later into the respiratory and the other systems that we talked about in last class. But instead of doing a lecture in the Zoom meeting or in the Google Hangouts, I decided to do a screencast. So we'll see how this goes and you can give me your feedback. So you can be taking notes as you go. The diagrams are not as important as the words. Again, we've talked many times in class about figuring out what exactly in the slideshow seems super important to you. For this one, we're going to go with that strategy. If it doesn't feel like a good strategy, I can go back to putting the little writing hand in the corner of a slideshow if need be, telling you which ones to take notes on. But yeah, so we're going to start out looking at this image, three systems as one. So we talked about last class that all of these systems that we're going to talk about, they work together really, really closely. So without one of them, nothing would work. Today we're talking about the circulatory system, the heart, right? It's the pump. It gets our blood all over our body. It keeps things going. All right. Next slide. Okay, there we go. So the basics of the cardiovascular or the circulatory system, you can call this system either of those names and people will know what you're talking about. Just a side note. So this is a vast network of organs and blood vessels that act both as a delivery system and a waste removal system from the body. Okay, goes all the way down to our fingertips, to our toes. The main part obviously is in your core. A lot of the things that your body needs to keep functioning are based in this area. And yeah, so nutrients, oxygen, and hormones are delivered to every cell. And these are necessary for the continuation of our bodily functions. Yeah, and it also helps remove waste products such as carbon dioxide. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything there. So what does the heart circulate? The heart circulates blood, obviously, right? But in that blood, oxygen, glucose, nutrients, and hormones. All right. So those are the things that it helps get around the body to the places it needs to go. Also CO2. Right, we're going to do a gizmo later in class, and you'll see that you can, when you take blood samples, depending on where you take them from, there are different levels of oxygen and CO2 in your blood. So the main functions of the heart: oxygenate blood by carrying it from the lungs, send the oxygenated blood to the organs in the body to be used for cellular respiration, to maintain equilibrium throughout our whole body, right? Because the blood is necessary to keep everything going, everything happening in our body, and to expel CO2 by carrying blood to the lungs so we can breathe it. We can breathe it out. All right. So you are welcome to pause this video at any point and take longer to take notes, but I'm just going to keep going for now. So yeah, you can do it at your own pace. I think that's the good thing about this. So we're looking at blood function. So why and what blood does. This one, I'm going to say protection and regulation, these second two categories. Don't worry as much about knowing the specifics about those two. All right, we're mostly going to focus on transport. And if and when it comes up on a quiz or a test, it's more likely going to be on transport than it will be about regulation or protection. We're covering it just so you can have a general idea of what's happening in your body. So I already sort of touched on that O2 from the lungs carried by the red blood cells is in the transport, like blood helps transport that, okay? Like I said, nutrients are also, the blood takes those to places they need to go in your bodies, and hormones like estrogen and testosterone from your glands. Those also travel in your bloodstream. What are some waste? What are some waste products it takes away? Waste can be taken from the kidney to be made into urine, yes. And then the CO2 goes through your bloodstream and goes into your lungs, right? Is released into your lungs. Regulation just means the heat is absorbed from muscles, and it goes throughout your body to keep you warm. And then, as you know, like when you get warm, when you're working out a lot or whatever, moving around a lot, there's heat that comes off of your body, which is your blood is flowing and that heat is being released. I'm not even going to read the protection part because I don't feel like it's super important for what we're learning. It is important because white blood cells, antibodies that keep us alive. But for what we're covering, you can just read through this. So this is something you should know. We're not focusing so much on the anatomy, meaning the different parts of the heart, but to know that there are 4 chambers in our hearts. We have the right and left atrium and the right and left ventricle. Okay. You will look more into this and see more what they do, what their function is in the gizmo in the second part of class. If you would like to draw a heart here, you can, depending on how long this has taken you so far to put into your notes.
Your heart is a muscle about as big as your fist, just like the muscles in your hand. But it never relaxes. For such a small muscle, it does a huge job. Your heart is always beating, but you never have to think about it. Take a look at this. It's our larger-than-life heart model of science. Your heart is a pump.
It is a pump.
It pushes blood all over your body.
It's the heart's job to keep the blood in motion.
Your blood carries fuel, energy from your food, and oxygen. Plus, your blood carries your body's waste away, too. Your heart sends blood in 2 directions every time it beats. The blue blood has very little oxygen. It comes from your body, and your heart pumps it to your lungs, where it gets recharged with oxygen. The red, oxygen-rich blood...
Just so everyone knows, the blue blood and red blood thing has since been debunked. That is not, the blood is not a different color. It only contains different gas levels, oxygen and CO2. So he's saying blue and red, but that's more of like an image thing to keep, for people to be able to figure out where the blood is going. It isn't actually blue. Okay.
Blood gets pushed from the lungs back to your heart, and from there, gets sent to all the other parts of your body, what we call your system.
The heart powers the circulatory system. It is the pump.
To send blood 2 ways at once, your heart has 2 sides, and each side has 2 parts or chambers. So altogether, we've got 4 chambers. Now, to make this work, your heart has valves, like gates, between the top chambers and the bottom chambers. Without the valves, this pump wouldn't work. It's a cycle. Your heart pumps blood to your lungs, back to your heart, to your system, and back to your heart. And it does it all the time. And it's only this big, and you don't have to think about it.
Valves keep the liquid flowing in one.
All right, we're going to jump forward to another part that I feel is important. This whole thing is important and interesting. If you want to try that too, that's fine.
Try this. See, you'll notice that after you use a water balloon for a pump, you have to take it over to a faucet to reload it. That's why your heart has a reloading system.
It is the pump, and pumping blood is its one and only job.
Every time your heart pumps, it leaves your left ventricle and goes up to your system. Then it comes back to your right atrium. Then it goes down to your right ventricle, then up to your lungs and your left atrium, and then down again to your left ventricle. So you need all those Latin words so you can go, up.
So you just watched the Bill Nye video, seeing some of the action, the movement of the pumping of the heart. So what I want to talk about next is the arteries and veins. So arteries and veins are both types of blood vessels. They are not the same thing. So you can't use them interchangeably. If you want to sound scientific, don't use them interchangeably, okay? Know that veins carry oxygen and nutrient-poor blood to the heart, okay? So you have these arrows going to the heart. And arteries carry oxygen and nutrient-rich blood away from the heart, all right? So you have your arrows going away. I'm going to remember this by away and arteries. So they both start with an A. Arteries to carry the oxygen nutrient-rich blood away. So there's a lot of oxygen and nutrient in that blood. It's going away to all of your organs, to your lungs, to the different parts of your body that need it. And then the veins are carrying that oxygen and nutrient poor, so there's not a lot, back to your heart. So arteries away, that's how I'm going to remember it. And capillaries, those are the really small blood vessels that provide a bridge between the arteries and veins. It's basically connecting them. I don't know if you've ever seen a plant's root system, but it has like a 1 or 2 really big roots, and then there's tiny little roots that connect into the rest of the soil. It's a similar idea for capillaries in our bodies. So we're vertebrates, and this is our circulatory system. So here we're talking about the veins and arteries again, right? Arteries are arteries away. So the heart, the artery is carrying blood from the heart to the lungs, right? And the same one down here in the right-hand corner, the artery is going from the heart to the body, all right? And this one, vein, you're going towards the heart with that blood that does not have a lot of nutrients or oxygen in it. And the same is in the upper right-hand corner, the vein is going from the lungs to the heart, okay? Pretty, yeah. So if you think it's helpful, this is a good image and pretty easy to draw into your notes with the arrows, and you know which one is artery and which ones are arteries and which ones are veins. All right. And the last part is just talking about the circulation of blood to the lungs and the body and what those things do. So like I said, we're focusing on the function. So circulation to lungs, the blood gets the oxygen from the lungs, right? And then drops off the CO2 in the lungs. And it brings oxygen-rich blood from the lungs to the heart. So that's the circulation function for blood and the lungs. The second part is the blood circulation to the body and the functions of that, what that does. So it pumps the oxygen-rich blood to the body, just like to the lungs, or from the lungs, sorry. And then it picks up nutrients from the digestive system, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But the nutrients that we eat and take in eventually go into our bloodstream and get moved around our body. And the last thing is the blood collects CO2 and cell waste and gets rid of that in a couple of different ways. So we know the blood brings the CO2 to the lungs, and then it is expelled from there. All right.